to call my own. With my why, I stand strong, seen.
All right, perfect. I just got Pastor Josh Johnson on, and I will be pulling up your stream right now to check the levels.
Find your why. Join today at ymca.org for a better us.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is AP News. I'm Rita Foley. Some Hawaii residents still have power and cell phone troubles a week after the wildfires started there. And we're hearing this morning that the number of people who are known to have died in the wildfires is up to 106. President Biden is promising to help survivors. The AP's Shelley Adler.
Before talking about his economic policies in Milwaukee.
Sure. Good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
So good to be.
In Maui.
I am doing well. What about you, Sandy?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much.
From the federal government.
And Biden plans to
Michael
Ann, sounds good.
Sweetie, you can hear the pastor.
Travel to Hawaii as soon as we can.
Yep.
And talk with the governor about it. I don't want to get in the way.
And he gave more than thoughts and.
All right, I believe we have about 8 minutes before the top of the show, but I will run back and check.
Okay, you know what? You can.
We'll be there for them.
I'll yield another minute.
For the first time, North Korea.
Okay, sounds good.
A soldier who willingly ran across the border into the North last month. The AP's Norman Hall.
In its first official confirmation of the detention of Private Second Class Travis King, North Korea says King is disillusioned with the inequality of American society and racial discrimination in the Army. He crossed the heavily armed border on July 18th from a border village. King became the first American detained in the North in nearly 5 years. I'm Norman Hall.
Washington is trying to get him back to the U.S. Mother Nature is not done with us. The National Weather Service says more record high temperatures are expected across the northwestern states, Texas and Florida too. A dangerous heat wave, the weather says, over the Northwest. Parts of the Midwest expected to get severe thunderstorms. And those gas prices keep rising. Gas is $3.87 a gallon today, says the AAA, up 31 cents in a month. This is AP News. There's word from Ukraine that Russia is resuming targeting the grain infrastructure in the war in Ukraine. The AP's Charles de Ledesma.
Russia steps up attacks on Ukraine's southern Odessa region while a grain ship starts a journey. Local officials say Russia's resumed its targeting of grain infrastructure in the Odessa region, using drones in overnight strikes on storage facilities and ports along the Danube River that Kyiv has increasingly used for grain export to Europe after Moscow broke off a key wartime export deal through the Black Sea. At the same time, though, a loaded container ship stuck at the port of Odessa since Russia's full-scale invasion started has set sail, heading through the Black Sea to the Bosporus, along a temporary corridor established by Ukraine for merchant shipping. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Here at home, retail sales rose a better than expected 0.7% in July from June. I'm Rita Foley, AP News.
This is 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs and streaming worldwide at WCPT.
Hi, Ms. Jackson. We have about 6 minutes.
We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Vuchitsky. We'll see sunny skies here for today with a high in the low 80s. Winds out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. For tonight, a slight chance for rain showers here late, partly cloudy and low near 64. By Thursday, chance for showers and thunderstorms, a blend of clouds and sunshine develops high to 81. Then by Friday, mostly sunny skies, a high around 79. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 60.
This is Ron Whittingham, and I'm co-owner of Megan Financial, an independent retirement and financial services firm here in Chicago. We've built our business on playing the long game, teaching financial literacy to our clients to prepare them for a great future and a dignified retirement. Investments, pensions, 401ks, they're all pretty complicated. We make sure that you understand it all. Give us a call at 708-444-1090. We're Megan Financial, and we're your partners in a happy retirement. Or visit us at megent.com.
Securities and advisory services offered through Cetera Advisors LLC, member of FINRA SIPC, a broker-dealer and a registered investment advisor. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. The views depicted in this broadcast are general in nature and provided for informational use only. The views are not necessarily those of Cetera Advisors LLC. They should not be considered as specific investment or tax advice. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Keep in mind that investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Investment decisions should be based upon an individual's own goal, time horizon, and tolerance for risk. Consult your investment and/or tax professional regarding your unique situation.
What's holding you back from learning the language you've always wanted to know?
Too hard.
Takes too long.
Not with Babbel. Babbel's lessons take just 15 minutes a day.
15 minutes isn't long.
Nope. And they're fun. So you don't realize you're learning a language, but you are. In 3 weeks, you're able to start having conversations. And Babbel's lessons are built around real life.
And with Babbel, it isn't hard.
It's perfect.
Now try Babbel free. Just go to Babbel.com. That's BABBEL.com.
Hi, I'm Marcel Spears. Keeping our global neighborhood safe is a tough job, one made just a bit safer with the help of America's brave military dogs.
Ooh,
These
okay.
dogs, who often take the same
Pastor
risks and
Johnson.
make the same sacrifices as our human warriors, keep our troops safe. by
Yes, ma'am.
Girl, you know what? I wouldn't give anything to
locating
be
enemy
alive
positions,
for
and bringing a
at
sense of
such a time
comfort
as this.
and
Can
home
you believe this Travis King? I
almost
had a
unimaginable
feeling that
circumstances.
he ran into North Korea because of that.
Yet,
because of
when these brave
racism.
K9 heroes retire, they're not always given the same treatment as
about
the
this
RIPs,
is
and are too often
very
left
interesting.
overseas.
And here we are.
Very.
American Humane works to bring home these valiant dogs and reunite them with the people who mean the most to them,
Something,
their handlers,
something that's not.
so they can
y'all
enjoy
ain't
happy,
saying.
healthy,
Gotcha.
well-deserved retirements. To learn how you can help America's
This will
four-footed
be interesting.
heroes,
Hey, Morning
visit
Stars, Michael Ann.
AmericanHumane.org.
Hey. Please, everybody, go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Lenny or Bob, how you doing? Hey, Yvonne.
Chances are
And
A
sending
little
you
less
all
than
so
90
much.
seconds.
Thank you so much. Getting your coffee. All right, Yvonne. I love it. I love it. Wait to have a nice, large cup of tea when I am done here. I have some hard-boiled eggs, which I made. I love to make my hard-boiled eggs, Pastor Vicky, with curry and paprika, a little bit of salt and pepper, a little bit of stevia, little sweetness. But curry can be a little sweet too in this purest form. Yeah, I love hard-boiled eggs, and I love to make them myself.
It sounds like you make deviled eggs.
No, excuse me, deviled eggs. That's right. That's right. But I had my hard-boiled eggs. I don't make them. I wait for a minute.
Pet stores stop selling dogs
And then I come up with
even
them.
more
Thank you
lives are
so
saved.
much.
And with your help,
I'm always
we can
because I like
save
to
them
make my
all.
own.
Visit bestfriends.org/puppy mills to learn more.
Everybody finds the
Yeah,
devil
I
thing.
know about courage.
Well,
I learned from my adoptive mom.
I love
She said
Indian
sometimes you
cuisine.
just gotta hold on.
30 seconds.
We'll get through
That's
this.
just like
Mom,
my
we
favorite.
are so high up.
Don't
Hold
ask
my
me why.
hand.
Well, everybody, it's just
Well, the seasonings are just so refreshing.
and I don't mind. And plus, I fall in and out on meat.
Visit adoptuskids.org to find out
And the
more.
challenges
This
I
message
gotta
is brought to you
get
by Adopt
protein
US
in.
Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human
So
Services,
that
and the
becomes
Ad
like,
Council.
I can eat
Stand by.
just about anything at an Indian restaurant. Here we go.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars. Michael Ann was first this morning, but she was like one of my first morning stars. Paula, you all been with me since the word go, and I love you and appreciate you. And Yvonne, who we just had in Chicago, she is part of the Rainbow Push family, as are all of you. I include you all. And Robert and Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia, sending you all so much love today. Let's talk about, did you ever see the movie Blindside? Michael Oher's story, this young man who was rescued by this white family. He was in poverty and he went on to play college, Division I college football, the NFL. He's now a retired player. Well, he now And it was a heartwarming story. I even went to the theater to see it because you saw that he had been adopted by this family. And not just because they were white, but when people love you, it's just a wonderful thing. And boy, it has taken a turn. He said, no, the movie wasn't accurate. Number one, I could read and write. I was very literate. And he said, it impacted how my teammates looked at me. They thought that I couldn't read the playbooks. I mean, when you play football, it's very complex. You have these playbooks that are like, what, 4 or 5 inches high, and you have to learn the plays. It's not something you just jump on the field and do, everybody. Well, it was that. And he said, ultimately, I was not adopted by them. I just found this out. And they have me under conservatorship, so they control my money. I just found this out too. We're going to be talking with attorney Shannon Holmes about that. He has a tremendous book out in which he's saying that, athletes have to become CEOs of their lives. He's a law partner with attorney C.K. Hoffler. We'll be joining him for that segment too. And then, of course, we're talking about the Trump indictment. The Fulton County Sheriff down in Atlanta, Georgia, has said, look, we're going to treat him, process the former president, and all of the 18 others charged in this RICO case. We're going to treat them like everybody else. But what's particularly interesting is that they're planning to, at least he said a couple of weeks ago, and it appears that he's still on this page, fingerprinting mugshots. What will that be like? Whoa. And now Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff for the president, said, no, this should be moved from state court to federal court. This should be a federal case. So I want you to call me. What do you think about all that's going on? This is going to be interesting. They have until next Friday to surrender. What is going to happen? Call me at 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are today as we go over that from the legal side and the social and political sides on Legal Q&A with CK. Back with some of these headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Maui's first reported fire was probably caused by power lines, according to this Washington Post report. An electrical malfunction caught on video matches data from August 7th, showing a significant incident in Hawaiian Electric's grid, according to news analysis. But you're seeing a lot in social media from those who live there who are saying, look, we're not able to go home. And it makes us suspicious because conglomerates and very wealthy people who live on the island and people who want to get on the island have been trying to buy our land from us for a long time. Is this an opportunity for them to get a land grab? What do you think about that? All right, everybody. Water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico have reached a record high. The average over the entire body of water topped 88 degrees this week. That's 2.6 degrees above average and more than a degree above the previous record. The warm waters are tied to a run of record heat and humidity along the Gulf Coast. Everybody, what about U.S. Army soldier Travis King? On Tuesday, North Korea acknowledged that this U.S. soldier who unexpectedly ran into their territory after crossing the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, in July. Now, at least we're hearing from their state media why. He said he felt, quote, disillusioned, close quote, with an unequal American society and racism that he saw in the Army. What do you think about that, everybody? Call me at 773-763-9278. Now, he is saying that as you now have more and more African Americans who are sitting atop the military-industrial complex. But what does that mean? And what? Because when he crossed into the DMZ, when he crossed into North Korea, I knew that there was something about this. They claimed that King told investigators that he crossed the border, quote, because he harbored ill feeling against inhuman treatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army. We'll see how this all plays out, everybody. And now we're seeing sky-high U.S. housing costs, which are driving homelessness, everybody, according to a Wall Street Journal report. It's up 11% since 2007, everybody. Denver, New Orleans, New York City, all across the country. This is the largest jump since 2007. Kansas is investigating a police raid, get this, of a newspaper office, everybody. Officers searched the Marion County Records offices last week, seizing computers, cell phones, and files. The raid has drawn outrage from journalists nationwide. It's a nightmare for journalism, everybody. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation has launched a criminal probe into this matter. The U.S. exempted Baylor University from Title IX sexual harassment rules. The private Baptist school in Texas had asked to dismiss discrimination complaints filed by LGBTQ plus students, arguing that they were, quote, inconsistent with its religious values. Now, it matters, according to this Washington Post report, because many LGBTQ plus advocates view Title IX exemptions as a way of granting equal treatment and protection to queer students at religious high schools. And those are some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show in Chicago. We're going to have a high of 81 degrees, beautiful sunny day. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 88 degrees, will be clear with clouds. Well, at least we know one team that will be in the finals. That's right, Spain. They won over Sweden yesterday. 2-1, everybody. And today we'll find out if it will be Australia or England, but the final game, the championship game, is on Sunday for women's soccer, the FIFA tournament, the World Cup. In Major League Baseball, we still have our crosstown series. Last night, the White Sox won 5-3 over the Cubs. What's going to happen tonight with the Sox and the Cubs? We'll know later on tonight. And the Twins 5, the Tigers 3. In the WNBA, the Lynx and the Sky will be off until Friday. Those are just a few of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Vicki Johnson, it's always a joy to be with you. How can we worship with you? I don't know how you do it. You're so active in the community, and yet you have not one, but two pulpits, two churches you're serving as the I know I can hear the exhaustion. But they need you, and I'm so glad that they have you.
Yes. Well, you can worship with me at Lebanon Lutheran at 13100 South Manistee at 9 a.m. on Sundays, and at St. Thomas Lutheran on 80th and Jeffrey Boulevard at 11:30 a.m. for 1 hour of power.
Amen. I love it. I love it. I love it. So talk to me. What is the good news today? It just seems like I just shared with you when we were before we came on the air. This is a time to be living. Every day something makes your neck pop. It's just unbelievable. Oh my gosh. I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Well, good morning, Santita, and good morning to all of your morning stars and friends. There is good news. One of my friends that I used to work out with is the world's biggest Michael Jackson fan. She celebrates his birthday every year. She is saddened when June 25th rolls around and acknowledges his day of death. She knows all about his family and every song he has ever made. She has the paraphernalia, including the all-famous glove. And if you want to know anything, and I do mean anything about MJ, ask Viv, because she knows, and we have fun hearing her stories. Isn't that something, that we can know so much about the people who entertain us? Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Michael B. Jordan, Michael J. Fox, Michael Bublé, Michael Douglas, Michael Phelps, Michael Ealy, and Mike Tyson. Isn't it something that we can know how many gold records they have, or how many championships they've won, how many Academy Awards they have, how many Back to the Futures they were in, how many Christmas specials they've made, how many gold medals they've won, how many movies they've been in, how many titles they have. Isn't it something how we can know all of this and not really know ourselves as well? I can hear you now rebutting me. I know me. If it's anybody I know, I know me. I beg to differ. We spend so much time on knowing about the glitz and glamour of others. Well, today, I would like to invite you to get to know yourself a little better. Know what your triggers are and how to deal with them. Know what brings you joy or what can lead you into an abyss of despair. Know your own statistics and records. Spend some time with yourself. You are worth knowing better. And if anybody knows you, it ought to be you. You are special. God made you special. You are somebody. Spend more time with yourself, and the stats of others will become tertiary. Know yourself. Love yourself. If you will do this, and I believe that you will, then to me, that's good news.
Amen, amen, amen. You know, it's a funny thing that you would mention that. Of course, you know Aline Walker. We
Of course.
I mean, of course, they were part of the youth division in Breadbasket and Operation Push. And these are people who I've known all of my life. You will have babysat us formally and informally, and you've known us all, and we've been
Yes.
together all of our lives, really. Certainly all of mine.
Yes.
And it's funny. I remember going to my first trip to Africa with my parents. I was 7. And I remember when I came home, I stayed home a few days. And Aline said, you know, she was with us at Yusef's son's graduation. Now Yusef's oldest boy is on his way to high school, and he's taller than Yusef, if you can believe that. But time just keeps
Wow.
on going. He's like 6'2", 6'3". And like size 15 shoe, he just keeps on growing. And she said, you know, when you came back from that trip, she said you were traumatized by that. And I kind of vaguely remember that. Well, you know, Whitney Young died there. That was, you know, can you imagine being with someone for 4, 5, 6 days, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then you come home. I mean, you come back to the hotel and he's dead. And all of the adults around you are scared to death. John Lewis, Bayard Rustin, Percy Sutton, Congressman Lou Stokes, Congressman John Conyers, the former Attorney General Ramsey Clark and his wife were on that trip too. And these are people who are functioning like at the highest levels of knowing in our government. They were all, and Uncle John was not in Congress yet. But having been, you know, so close to Dr. King, this was not quite 3 years after he'd been killed. So to have one of the titans of the civil rights movement drown, you know, because he had gone, having gone out to sea, you know, on a yacht, having lunch with some friends was like, you know, and she said, you know, you were traumatized by that. And I had to step back because I knew that I had been, but she gave voice to it. And it's like she legitimized it, and it made me step back and look at some things, you know. And so I think that you're right. You know, we engage in a lot. Our eyes look out, but you know, when you shut your eyes, it's an opportunity for you to look within.
Yes.
And I don't think we take enough time. I'm glad you brought that up today, because clearly this has been on my heart, because she said it a few weeks ago, but it stayed with me. She said, no, you were really traumatized by that. And the way that she, you know, and Aline is she's a trained biologist. She's a researcher. And so she is, you know, she's very scientific. She said, no, you were traumatized. That trip was a lot for you. It took a toll. And I said, wow, really? She said, oh yeah. She said, you couldn't go back to school immediately. I said, wow. You know, and it's amazing the things that we don't the little things that happen to us in life, and that are big things, and even big things in our lives. We really, I think, Pastor Johnson, maybe this is kind of bleeding into our health segment. I think that we're afraid to look inside of ourselves because we're afraid of what we might find.
Yes. You know, the temptation said, take a stroll through your mind sometime and you'll be surprised what you might find. We are afraid to go in there because not only will we be surprised what we find, we might be shocked what we find and are not ready to deal with it.
So what do you recommend that we do, particularly in this time in which so much is being revealed to us about institutions that we've trusted, that we no longer trust? COVID, as Reverend Tisha Dixon Williams said, you know, it's a snitch. You know, we were pulled into our homes, we were pulled into ourselves and each other in ways that really people say that we were damaged. I'm like, no, we were already damaged. Now we see where the healing needs to occur. You know, I mean, there's just a lot. What do you recommend that people do? I mean, do you suggest counseling?
Definitely. Thomas Todd, TNT, used to say, snatch the cover. And that's what COVID did. It snatched the cover. And we can snatch the cover for ourselves. Sometimes snatching the cover is good because it reveals what is actually there. I definitely recommend counseling. I definitely recommend therapy, whether it's group therapy, sitting down and scheduling time with friends to be open and honest in our discussions without pretensions, because we really do need to know ourselves.
I mean, and don't be afraid, because you know that to me, what's interesting is that you don't get information until you're ready to handle it. You remember that famous line? Was it from this famous Jack Nicholson movie? He said, "You can't handle the truth."
Yeah, you can't handle the truth. And another true statement is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, I thank you for that, because I think we really need to understand that when you're ready, believe it or not, it might be painful what you find out.
Right.
But you never forget information. God does not allow that to happen. God does not allow you to be traumatized, because by the time I had that experience, I had lived through Dr. King's assassination, and I felt what that meant, because I'd met him, right? And and I saw how my mother was very careful about how we approached Dad for the next couple of days when he got home that night, because he was in shock, and he wouldn't take off that shirt with all the blood on it.
Right. I remember that.
I mean, but you have to understand, you all, these are peaceful people who saw a man have his neck nearly blown off by a missile. It was that powerful. And they had been living with death threats for the entire year. Because remember, Dr. King was killed, I can't say it enough, a year to the day, almost to the minute, that he announced his opposition to the Vietnam War, April 4th.
Vietnam War.
That's right.
Yes.
And so you knew what that meant. April 4th, 1967, at the Riverside Church, just after 6 p.m., he stepped to the microphone and talked about the difficulty that he had in arriving at that decision. And then April 4th, 1968, just after 6 p.m., he was killed. But just after he got off the stage, got out of the pulpit, Reverend Dr. Wyatt T. Walker, brilliant theologian, scholar, and preacher, who was his chief of staff, looked at him and said, "Martin, you know you just signed your death warrant." And Dr. King said, "I know." But they both said it was the right thing to do. So, it's a lot. It's a lot. And, everybody, we're all traumatized in our own ways. So, let's get some real help. Get some support. You deserve it. And get to know yourself.
Yes.
If you work at it, you just might like who you find. How can we worship with you on Sunday?
You can worship with me at Lebanon Lutheran, 13100 South Manistee at 9 a.m. and at St. Thomas Lutheran, 80th and Jeffrey Boulevard at 11:30 a.m. for an hour of power. Both can be worshiped with in person or on Facebook.
Sending you so much love. Let's talk about Blindside. It seems that Michael Oher was blindsided by his parents who hadn't adopted him. Oh, back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk, 8:20 a.m.
So much is going
WCPT
on.
Willow Springs and online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
This is your WCPT
You are so
Progressive
welcome, Sandy.
Wednesday, August 16th at
One day I
7
want you
p.m.
to come on and
Women
talk
and Children
about
First
what we should do
Bookstore
about
presents
trauma.
a free event celebrating the release of The Women of Now, How Feminists Built an Organization
really,
that Transformed
really want you to do
America by Catherine Turk. For this
We need
event,
to- we
Catherine
need
will be
to-
joined in conversation by Mary Ann
we
Lupa,
need to
who served
have
as
that
the Chicago
discussion.
National Organization for Women's chapter president from 1970 to 1973. Pre-registration
I'm
for this
sending you
event
much
is required.
love you so much.
Register
And
on
you want to
Eventbrite.com.
tell, you know what, stay
Women
right
and Children
here.
First is
because we
located
have
at
2 funerals.
5233 North Clark Street
And if
in
you would
Chicago.
just say, oh,
Monday,
just
August
one more thing
26
before-
p.m.
for Dr.
Congressman
Woods and
Brad
Sarah
Schneider
Davis.
will host Congress on Your Corner in North
York
to answer questions from constituents and brief attendees on his work in Washington. Location will be disclosed upon registration. Register by visiting schneider.house.gov and click the Events tab.
Tired of all those talking heads down the dial who think they're always right?
People need to just calm down. It's gotten ridiculous.
Welcome to WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Quite frankly, I get most of my news from you.
This is WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see sunny skies here.
We have Attorney Hoffler and Attorney Holmes online.
Winds out of the southwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, gusting as high as 15. For tonight, a slight chance for rain showers here late, partly cloudy and low near 64.
Okay, how
By
you
Thursday,
doing?
chance for showers and thunderstorms,
My
a blend of
beautiful
clouds and
people?
sunshine develops high of 81. Then by Friday, mostly sunny skies, a high around 79.
CK?
That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's
Yes, I'm
60.
here.
Okay.
WCPT 820
Are you on
seeking
speaker?
a motivated part-time radio sales executive
Yes,
to
and I have
generate
the
revenue for the
because I-
station
I'm
by
ready.
establishing
Okay,
long-term
let me
business
hear
relationships
you real
with
quick
new
without the
clients
speaker.
and
Let me
maintain
hear
or
how you
nurture
sound
current
without the
business
speaker.
relationships. We're looking for someone who passionately believes in the progressive mission, celebrates inclusion, appreciates our
sorry,
unique
can you keep
platform,
speaking,
and would
CK?
enjoy representing Chicago's progressive
Yeah,
talk.
you heard me,
Please
but I'll
email your resume to jobs
Okay, I need you to turn that down,
No phone calls, please.
Henry,
Use
so
web
we
radio
can
companies.
hear her more clearly.
that better?
Yeah, no, I need you to hear because if she needs to make adjustments in the sound, you need to do that. Can you speak to us, CK?
Yep, I'm speaking right now.
Okay, without the speaker.
Yep, I'm
Okay,
speaking right
great,
now.
great. Attorney Holmes, can I hear you?
Yes. Good morning.
Okay, this is not a good connection. Let me hear you again.
Good morning.
Okay, that's
How's
better.
that?
How does that sound?
Okay.
Henry?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, because you're the only one who has the ability to make the adjustments. I can't do that here. So I need you to, this is for you to hear, okay?
Yep, we have about a minute and a half.
Okay, very good.
Or actually, sorry, like 45 seconds.
Okay, fantastic. Half that time. Good.
Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, Wednesday, August 16th, 2023. WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please meet them over there. Everybody, let's talk about the blind side. Somebody was blindsided here. And we're going to be talking about that. But before we do, Pastor Vicki Johnson, before she goes, wanted to remind us of one of our morning stars who made his transition. But I know he is singing in that heavenly choir that Mahalia Jackson spoke about. I'm sure he's also directing L. Stanley Davis. But we miss him more than we can say. And of course, Dr. Kenneth Woods. They're going to be laid to rest this week. Pastor Johnson?
Yes, Dr. Kenneth Woods. Service will be on this Friday, August the 18th at God's House to All Nations on 84th and Stony Island Avenue here in Chicago. Visitation is at 6 p.m. and the service is at 7 p.m. And then on Sunday, August the 20th, Professor L. Stanley Davis, will have a visitation on Sunday, August 20th at 3 p.m. at the First Church of Deliverance on 43rd and Wabash Avenue, and then a musical celebration from 4 to 6 p.m. And then his body will be laid to rest with his mother in Maryland. It's going to be a celebration, both great musical times.
Amen, 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 amen. So glad that we got an opportunity to share this time and space with those great men. Sending you so much love, Pastor Vicki Johnson. Again, how can we worship with you on Sunday and where?
At Lebanon Lutheran, 13100 South Manistee, Sundays at 9 a.m. and St. Thomas Lutheran at 80th and Jeffrey Boulevard at 11:30 a.m. for an hour of power.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, everybody. Let's talk about Blindside. It was a movie of which I was, and I'm still a fan because I really do appreciate the message. But it turns out that, people take they take literary license, historical license. And okay, I get that. But it seems that there's something else that happened here. Michael Orr, who was at the center of this story, young Black boy, 11 years of age at the time that this story started. His mother was addicted to drugs and was unable to care for him. So a white family took him into their hearts, took him into their home, and they provided stability for him. And one had the impression that they had to really educationally bring him up to speed because he couldn't read. There were just a lot of things that he did not, of which he'd been deprived. And you got the impression that he'd been adopted by this family. It turns out that to Michael Orr, who ended up going to Ole Miss and ended up playing professional football, it turns out that he was not adopted by them. It turns out that he's functioning under conservatorship. They control his money. And it's just a fascinating story. Because he just found all of this out. He says that the couple misled him into signing away his legal rights and entered a conservatorship under the guise that it would legally make him a member of their family. And so we're going to have attorney C.K. Hoffler and sports lawyer, attorney Shannon Holmes, a member of her team, talk to us about what happened here. I mean, because indeed, this is really in your wheelhouse. I mean, CK, I called you last night. I'd already reached out to him. I said, but I don't want to miss any piece of this, because it turns out Attorney Holmes has a book out now, and everyone, you need to get it. If you have children who are interested in sports and really interested in, if they have musical aspirations, if they have a talent that can be capitalized upon, you need to read this book. Chief Executive Athlete, but it goes beyond athletics, everybody. How to run your sports career like a Fortune 500 company. And he reveals how you can increase your profits by owning yourself. So, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, if you don't mind, just really, he's part of your practice. You all have started a practice to do what? But, very quickly, let's pivot to Attorney Holmes, because I certainly want to hear what he and you have to say about this.
Well, certainly, Santita, very quickly. We started a practice. It's called the NIL Law Group, where we advise college athletes and their families on the pitfalls and the legal ramifications of these NIL deals, name, image, and likeness deals that college athletes and some high school students can get. And while it's a great thing that they can be paid for their name, image, and likeness, there are some pitfalls. So Shannon Holmes, one of my partners in that venture, is an extraordinary lawyer, and he's been in this space for a very long time. His book is remarkable. So I'm going to pivot to him right away. He's been on this show before, Santita, and I can tell you what happened to Michael happened to others. We just don't hear about it.
So this is not something that's unique. You were not surprised when you heard this story, CK.
I was not surprised. I was not surprised. I was not surprised at all.
Even after this movie?
I was not surprised at all, because movies, sometimes when you see movies, they can be based on fact and some fiction. And so I was not surprised to hear it. I was saddened to hear it, but I wasn't surprised, because these are the things that happen. And oftentimes, again, not to toot our own horn, people have lawyers, but the athletes don't have their own lawyers. Sometimes the individuals need their own representation, separate and apart from families and separate and apart definitely from the schools. And so it's very unfortunate, but this is not something that is uncommon.
Attorney Shannon Holmes, talk to us. What happened here? What happened here? Because I think that the beauty of your book to me is that when I think of people with musical gifts, I mean, what if Prince had been what if he read this book when he was 13, 14, 15, because, he was a musical prodigy. And so, he had been pursued by record companies when he was very, very young. And he ended up, of course, getting into a big fight with Warner Brothers, where he had to he put slave on his face until he was able to get agency over his name, over his likeness, over his masters. But talk to me. What happened here? Because what's sticky about this to me, Attorney Holmes and Attorney Hoffler, is that this is family. So when he signed this conservatorship, he thought that this was going to make him part of their family. And then he finds out just into adulthood, this is a recent discovery for him, that he's not legally their son. Attorney Holmes.
Good morning. Yes, I like this movie, and I've watched this movie many times.
Me too. I love
because of the story. It's a good old American feel-good story, and despite the racial overtones and some of the scenes, and even there's a scene where Mrs. Tui, tells her friends and family members, "Hey, I'm going to do what's best for this kid, and he's teaching me things about life that you guys can't imagine," etc. It was a feel-good story, and as CK said, all these films are filled with some facts, but also some drama to heighten the film. I'm not surprised by the findings. Little disappointed by the findings, but not surprised. This happens quite often, and we see it a lot actually in basketball, where these youth coaches and handlers, if you will, these guys who have dreams and aspirations of being around an NBA player, will bring in a young kid into their home and kind of take over their life, if you will, take over their finances and start to leech and take money from them. So, and sometimes it is clouded under quote unquote guardianship or adoption, et cetera. I think what's most disturbing, and again, I guess Santita, and I'm sure CK will laugh when I say this, as lawyers, we have to reserve a little bit until some of the facts come out through this case. But some of the things that are shocking is that he says that during his NFL career, he feels like he had some negative impressions from professional teams. I guess once his tenure ended at certain teams, he was looking to go to another team. He suggests that those general managers, those organizations looked at him as if he wasn't intelligent and may have been mentally slow in some areas, and that impacted his ability to get another contract. And that's puzzling because the guy was a two-time All-American at Ole Miss, which is in the SEC, and it's in the South. So to get those votes to be considered All-American in college football is huge. Secondly, he was drafted in the first round. And so it's a little puzzling to think that later in his career, he believes that what happened in the movie impacted his career. So I really want to hear more about that as things unfold.
Well, hold on, because let me interrupt you here, because I think that most people don't know, because the whole the myth of the dumb athlete is just that, it's a myth. These are people who have to learn a skill, perfect the skill, and then employ the skill constantly. And football players have playbooks that they have to learn. And these playbooks are as big as phone books used to be, right? I mean, and so because the way he was portrayed, Attorney Holmes, in the film, he came across as someone who was developmentally challenged, I would say, perhaps, right? And so, and she had to get him a tutor, and it's like he had to learn to read and write. And when you hear him now, you're like, well, I mean, and anyone can grow, but it's like there is a disconnect between what we saw in the movie and the gentleman that we see now, And so I think it's important for people to know the amount of preparation that goes into being to being a football player on the college level, let alone NFL level. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. Great point, Santita. I mean, you're right. There's film work. There's, like you said, huge playbooks, a lot of practice time, and every position. His position is, blindside. The reason I guess we should point that out. The reason the movie was called Blindside is because he has a specialty position. He plays left tackle, which in football is the guy responsible for protecting the right-handed quarterback's backside, because the quarterback is right-handed. Usually his face and eyes are facing right in an attempt to throw the ball down the field. And so he needs someone on his backside, making sure he doesn't get hit from behind. That position in football has become one of the top positions in all of football and one of the highest paid positions in all of football. That's why the title of the movie is called Blindside, because of the position he played. And so for him to play in that position, to understand everything the opponent is doing in an attempt to get to the quarterback and be able to make all the adjustments, make all the changes that he has to make when the defense makes adjustments, suggests that he was not developmentally challenged, and he was able to process information. So you make a great point with respect to that.
Well, I mean, I just felt that it was important to make that point, because most of us don't know what goes into preparing to function. To play the game. To play all of these games, you have people who are extremely bright, even, musicians. Whether they can read music or not. I mean, these are very, very, very. These are every instrumentalist or singer is hardwired for math, because music is oral math, intervals. I mean, you singing or playing in thirds and fractions. I mean, this is what you do. So I mean, so where does this? How is it that he did not? So am I to understand that he thought he was adopted, and then he found out, Attorney Holmes and Attorney Hoffler? I mean, let me start with you, Attorney Holmes. He thought he was adopted, but then he found out that he wasn't.
And they're suggesting, instead of an adoption, that there was actually a conservatorship that was put into place, which basically gave the Tuohys the right to make decisions on his behalf. And it apparently happened after his 18th birthday. So what that suggests to me, and forgive me, I don't practice family law, but that suggests to me that there's some law that impacts adoption once a person is 18. And so that means they couldn't have legally adopted him as a minor at that time. There is such a thing as adult adoption, but I think that involves more mental issues, et cetera. So that suggests to me that this conservatorship is what they put in place. And, that begs the question, what was the purpose of that at that point? If he was 18, they had provided him with care in their home for the last couple of years. And I think that's the question that has me puzzled now. Why did they even need a conservatorship at that point? Other than to do some of the things he suggests, because, unfortunately, I'm not able to see any of the positives that they would have needed to put that in place. He was preparing to go to college. He was 18. He could easily sign his own documents at the collegiate level. But I'll tell you this, and this is the other thing. I've met the Tuohys. So I've met the Tuohys on a couple of occasions. The son, the youngest son in the movie, the little kid, eventually grows up and becomes a college football player. And he comes down to play at SMU, where I had a relative playing. And so I was over there quite a bit. I went to most of the games over a 4-year period, sat next to them, talked to them a few times. Obviously, none of these topics came up and nothing was suggested otherwise, but I have met them. So again, my point, my thought is that it makes me wonder. And then they took on a fiduciary duty, and I'm sure CK can talk about this as well. They took on a fiduciary duty, and their duty was supposed to be in his best interest at all times. And I think that's what he's challenging and questioning now through this legal process, is that they didn't operate in that capacity in his best interest, in his interest with respect to financial gain. So when you look at now they're swapping comments regarding the movie. At one point, the Tuohy said that they split all the proceeds by 5, which included the mother, father, and their 2 biological kids, and the 5th person being Mr. Orr. Now there have been comments that they said they didn't make any money from the movie. So again, I think there's a lot of juxtaposing for position that we kind of got to wait and see what happens with that as well.
Oh, but I like you, have seen the film many times, and I still feel good about the messages that they were sending out. It's painful because we don't know all that's happened yet. It's painful to see even this break with the Tuohys and Mr. Orr. Attorney Hoffler, but wow. He's alleging and charging them with a whole lot, and it's really unsettling, CK.
It is unsettling, and I do not do family law, but I have actually worked on guardianships. Guardianships are different than conservatorships, but I worked in that space connected with other litigation that I was handling.
Well, then what
and
is the difference?
I will say this, we have to wait.
What is the difference?
A conservatorship, typically you might see a conservatorship, and it depends on each jurisdiction, where you have a minor or you have somebody who has some capacity issues or may have some disability. And so they need, or some emotional issues, and they might have access to a lot of money, come into money, trust money, things like that. And they need someone to see and oversee the management of those funds. Britney Spears, for instance, she had a conservatorship. A guardianship, the guardianships that I've worked on, for instance, are people very similar, adults who are incapacitated. Say a mother who is no longer able to manage her affairs. She has a lot of money at her disposal. People are taking advantage of her. She is not able to function on a high enough level to manage her day-to-day operations. She may have the early stages of Alzheimer's or dementia. So a guardianship where there's a guardian that is appointed to oversee that, who literally steps in the shoes of that person. So there are some distinctions again on a state-by-state basis. But I think what's critical for us is to wait to hear the facts. Because whether they had a conservatorship or a guardianship, whether they adopted him or not, I think if we rely on the movie, they did provide some benefit to his life early on. Now, what I don't like is the misrepresentation. But we don't know what's fact and what's fiction based on the movie. But there's no question. And they're brilliant people who, for one reason or another, have not had the foundation educationally when they were early, and they just needed that extra push, and their brilliance shine. And that's why education is so fundamental, because there's so many children who are brilliant, who have the capacity to do so much, but they and at some point, because they're busy, they're playing football, they're doing all these things, at some point, they have to take charge. And that is another reason why, for us, providing legal guidance, we are the lawyers to provide legal guidance to these athletes, we believe is critically important.
Well, I think you can also extend it to anyone who delights us. We think and if they're passionate about their job, whether it's someone who preaches well, sings well, plays an instrument well, people who delight us, who entertain us, who make us feel better, we automatically assign, well, they're not as sharp. They're not as bright. We think that Black preachers, because they're alliterative and they're poetic, that they're not as learned as people who are in the halls of academia and seminaries. And it's just not true. Before you can flout the fundamentals, you must master them. I want you to get this book, everybody. Whether you're an athlete, Attorney Shannon Holmes, or if you are someone who wants to enter the record industry. Well, if you want to enter an industry and you have a talent that people can, that can be commodified, you need to get this book, Chief Executive Athlete. I say musician, whatever. Chief Executive Athlete is the title of the book. How to run your sports career like a Fortune 500 company. We're going to be keeping up with this story. I've got less than a minute. Well, I've got about a minute here. Attorney Shannon Holmes, of course, we're staying on for legal Q&A with CK, talking about the Trump indictment. But the last minute belongs to you, Attorney Holmes.
Thanks for having me. Always great to be on with my colleague, CK. But yeah, the book, Chief Executive Athlete, How to Run Your Sports Career Like a Fortune 500 Company, really speaks to any serial entrepreneur, anyone, small business owner, anyone has a skill set that they want to understand how to scale and grow and how to operate their career and their business like a Fortune 500 company so they can mirror the success of these companies. It's a great, easy read that provides that framework. So thanks for that opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what that's why I want people to know. It ain't just for athletes. It's for everybody. Let's talk about the Trump indictment. Call us at 773-763-9278. Will he be fingerprinted? Will he get a mugshot? Will it be a federal case? Will it be a state case? What's the difference? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show right here on WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, in just a few minutes. Attorney Holmes, thank you, responsive to my frantic text. I caught up.
Anytime for you, Santita. Anytime.
But you know, when I saw the story, I thought of you immediately. I said, "Oh, and he's got this book. What if he read this book?" I was talking to a friend of mine. He said, "You should call him." I said, "I'm not going to call him. He's married." I said, "But I'm going to send a text message." So I was talking on the phone. I was like, "I'm going to send him a text like right now." I said, because he really needs to talk about this. I said, because what if he'd had this book? Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Yeah. You know, I was sitting there. I was like, God, I met the Tuohys, and you know, there obviously there was no discussion about this stuff, but it's interesting to have this thing come full circle. But I'm interested to see how it plays out. I mean, I've watched the movie lots of times. It's a great story. I think, like CK said, they did have a positive impact on him. But just love to hear where the actual breakdown took place. I can't wait to hear more about that.
Absolutely. I mean, and understanding the differences between a guardianship and a conservatorship. And but right. I think you're dealing with broken hearts, plural here, because he thought he was their adoptive son. And now he finds out that he's not, which makes you feel rootless.
Right.
You know.
Right. And the other thing, those folks, I mean, you know, they are pretty successful and they're all right. So it just makes you wonder, like, what's really happening here? I mean, where was the breakdown?
Well, there was a breakdown. There was. And it breaks my heart for everybody involved. It really does. But you know what? It's a cautionary tale. And, you know, because they've been able to really become known for foster parenting and adoptive parenting and interracial and transracial adoptions and relationships. And I hope that does not go away because of this. You know, what happened? You know, I mean, I just, you know, I want the best part of this story to hold.
Right. Yes. So yeah, I think once they get through figuring out all the paperwork, it'll be interesting to see how they put all this together.
Well, you know, at the end of the day, it's family, and they will all see that. So, right. Say what you will, but it's family, y'all. And so when you have that, CK.
Yes, Santita.
I'm sending you something right now.
Okay. And the one thing I do want to say is, you know, there's not a question that they did add value to his life.
Mm-hmm. Hi, Ms. Jackson.
We don't need to rewrite history. We don't need to rewrite history. There's no question about that. They made a difference. The issue is the almighty dollar, and that often causes this type of conflict, and that's very unfortunate. Could he have been successful without their intervention? Possibly, because he's talented. He had raw talent. He's a big dude. Somebody would have caught him at some point. So I think that I don't want to rewrite history. He probably will acknowledge and recognize that they added value to his life and they gave him guidance and they came in at the right time. And Lord knows if his biological parents could have done that, they would have, but they couldn't. They weren't able to, and they filled in the gap. And so I hope that part of this narrative is not rewriting that history.
Yeah.
Now, what happened with the money? But simply because you stepped in the gap, it doesn't entitle you to abuse and manipulate financially. They didn't need his money. That's another thing that we know for a fact. They didn't need his money. As Shannon said, they were people who were well off. But even if you have money, you know, money begets money. It doesn't mean that you have the right to abuse or manipulate that. So I just want to make that clear from my perspective. And then finally, as relates to that story, I think it's very, very important for us to pray that this family, because he is their family, like you said, Santita, adopted or not adopted, they did raise him and provide some value to him, that they can come back together and move beyond this. Because litigation amongst family is terrible. It's terrible.
And that's really what this is. I mean, and it's painful. It's painful. But you know, there's a lot. Would he have been taken in? Would he have been taken in had he just been a homeless black boy? There are a lot of what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. That having
Hi,
been
Ms. Jackson.
said, yes. Who do we have
We have
here?
Attorney Slane, Dwight McKee, and Attorney Connolly. Also, 2
Okay.
minutes before
Well,
the show
you know
starts.
what? I'm going to have to pivot on to the next topic. So
Yes, guys. Have a great morning. I'm going to drop off.
we're going to have you come back.
So, absolutely. Anytime. Talk to you soon, CK. I'll call you.
Oh boy, sending you much love. Sending you much love. Attorney Slane, how you doing this morning?
Well, good morning, Santita. I'm doing great. Greetings from Red America.
From Oklahoma. We love Oklahoma. Love it. Erin Connolly, welcome back, my sister.
Buongiorno. How is everyone?
Okay, you're back.
I'm back. In Springfield, though.
Okay, I know. She's back in America. Dwight McKee.
Morning.
Okay, well, this will be interesting because, boy, there's a whole lot going on with this case. For these cases, boy, this is gonna be a bumpy ride. I tell you that. Okay. So stand by, everybody. Coming up. How much time do we have? Henry?
Sorry, what was that?
Where are we in time, hon?
About 30 seconds.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, everybody, we're coming up. Oh, boy. Okay. Please stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
And hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Wednesday, August 16th. 2023, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I want you to meet my morning stars over on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. If you want to hear the show without all of the commercials, please go to WCPT820.com/Santita. Hey, everybody, let's talk about the latest in the Trump Georgia election case. Boy, oh boy. I mean, the former president is looking at a lot of indictments across 4 different cases. But let's look at this case. I mean, there is not speculation, but the sheriff of Fulton County in Georgia said he'll be treated, he'll be processed, they will all be processed, but specifically the former president will be processed like anyone else. He even said a couple of weeks ago, oh, he'll get a mugshot, fingerprinting. He'll be going through this infamous jail where a man was eaten to death by bed bugs. What will all of this mean? Let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show. Call us at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What about this becoming a federal? Will this be a federal case or will it remain a state case? What's the difference? Why is it important? Of course, it's a legal Q&A with CK, so I can't wait to get into it with her and hear from her. And this distinguished panel, as we talk about this, not just the legal, but the political realities that contextualize all that we're seeing right here, right now on the Santita Jackson Show, everybody. What to know? Well, Maui's first reported fire was probably caused by power lines. What to know? An electrical malfunction caught on video matches data from August 7th showing a significant incident in Hawaiian Electric's grid, according to new analysis. And there is growing anger within the Lahaina community because they said conglomerates and wealthy people who live on the island and wealthy people who don't live on the island have been trying to push them off of this particular sacred land. This was the first capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii. And they said, we've been holding on. These are working class and middle class people on an island of the super wealthy. And now they said people are trying to come and buy their land for them, essentially for a fraction of what it's worth. I'm going to be continuing to look at this particular case because it's something we need to understand. We need to understand what's going on. Call me at 773-763-9278. Let me know what you think about that. Water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico have reached a record high. The warm waters are tied to a run of record heat and humidity along the Gulf Coast. They said it will also fuel a very, very active and dangerous hurricane season. Kansas is investigating a very, very interesting case, a police raid of a newspaper's office. Officers searched the Marion County Records offices last Friday, seizing computers, cell phones, and files. The raid has drawn outrage from journalists nationwide. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation, well, they are looking at that case. And what about Travis King, the American soldier, Black American soldier, who famously was on a tour near the DMZ, the demilitarized zone that divides North and South Korea. And indeed, we are still, we don't have a peace treaty with them. We have an armistice agreement. So technically, we're still at war with Korea. Well, guess what? He went and tipped on and kind of danced across the DMZ and went into North Korea, and we hadn't heard from him. Well, Pyongyang, their state media, the North Korean state media, claims that Travis King, who ran into North Korea, was angry with racism in the American society. He's a U.S. Army private who ran across the DMZ. He was reported to be facing disciplinary action in the U.S. before he joined the border. He said that he is disillusioned with American racism. And he told investigators that he crossed the border, quote, because he harbored ill feeling against inhuman maltreatment and racial discrimination within the U.S. Army at a time when Blacks are in more prominent positions in the military-industrial complex than ever before, should I say in the Army, Navy, and in the Army in particular. Not the military-industrial complex, that's where the money is, but that's another story. So we're going to be talking about that. He's supposed to be disillusioned, as he put it, as North Korea says that he put it. He's disillusioned at the unequal American society. Indeed, his mother said, just let him come home. The question is, for me, does he want to come home? It's something for us to talk about another day, and I promise you we will. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 81 degrees. It will be sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 88 degrees, clear with clouds. In the World Cup, well, we do know one of the teams that will be fighting for the World Championship. It will be Spain. They were triumphant over Sweden 2-1 yesterday. Today, we're going to find out if it will be Australia or England. The championship game is on Sunday. Cannot wait to see that. In Major League Baseball, we've got our Crosstown series here in Chicago, the White Sox and the Cubs. Well, the White Sox won last night, 5-3. Will the Chicago Cubs come back tonight? We will see sometime after 7 p.m. In the Twins, 5, the Tigers, 3. The WNBA, our Lynx and the Sky had the night off, but they'll both be playing on Friday evening. Those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. You know, we've been fighting for financial freedom, everybody. We want you to please look into reaching out to Team Hochberg if you want to, if you're about to face foreclosure, or if you're struggling paying your bills and trying to hold on to your home, call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. If you want to rebuild your credit with a credit card, not a debit card, a credit card, they have created a credit card that's just for you. And if you follow their instructions, you can come from the 500s to the 600s to the 700s to the 800s in a matter of months. Oh, yeah. Call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. But if you're a first-time home buyer here in the Chicago area, which means you have not owned a home within the past 3 years, you need to call them, because first-time home buyers, having just made up 26% of the market last year, while Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are looking for you and they want to incentivize first-time home buyers. You might have owned a home 4 years ago, but you might have lost that home. So if you've not owned a home in the past 3 years, this program is for you, and it can change at any time, because these mortgage rates won't stay low. And when they are raised, the program is going to go poof. But if you are in Chicago and your total household income is below $105,700, this program might work for you. So I want you to call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, or go to 56david.com, 56david.com. And let us know, let them know, not us, but let them know what your issue is. Talk to them. You might be able to buy a home. Talk to them. You might be able to save your home. 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID, Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Oh boy, Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to the President of the United States, has filed to move the Fulton County court case to federal court. What does that mean, CK? We're also looking at the Fulton County sheriff, who said former President Trump is going to be processed like anybody else in his position, which a couple of weeks ago he said, oh no, he's going to get a mugshot. He's going to be fingerprinted. Wow. What will all of that mean? Attorney C.K. Hoffler, you have got a tremendous panel. Attorney David Slane said he could come back and be with us today. Attorney Aaron Connolly, fresh back in the United States, is with us. And of course, Dwight McKee, helping us to really contextualize all of this politically. Attorney C.K. Hoffler, what do you see?
Santita. What I see is that we are going to have 19 defendants. So long as this case remains postured the way it is, in Georgia, we're going to have 19 defendants who are going to be treated like any other defendant in a criminal case. They will be fingerprinted and they will be processed. There probably will be some grace given to the former president, meaning he's going to be fingerprinted and processed, but maybe he'll be allowed to come in to a back entrance or something like that, because he has Secret Service and all that kind of. He might have an entourage of security people that are provided to him.
Now, I'm not a lawyer, so when you say fingerprinted and processed, does that include a mugshot?
That would include a mugshot, because that is what happens when you have a case, a criminal case, and you are a criminal defendant. And really, any jurisdiction, you do get fingerprinted and you get a mugshot. The only question is how it's going to happen. It might be in a private area. It might be, he may be allowed to come into a different entrance. Rudy Giuliani and all the rest will not probably get that kind of grace. This would just be for the former president. But 19 people for this case in Fulton County are going to be processed like other defendants. The only difference might be that the former president will have maybe a holding place, a separate place where that could take place, where he wouldn't have to mix with other defendants who are being processed at the same time. And then he will appear in court like every other defendant. He will have the opportunity to tell the court how he pleads in this case, like every other defendant. But we saw that in the New York cases, in the New York case too. And then the case will proceed like every other defendant. And so we anticipate that there will be a bond, a question of bond. We don't know what that's going to be at this point, but he will be processed, Santita, according to what Fulton County does. Fulton County is not a stranger to high-profile cases with people, whether they are accused of public corruption or not. We've had several cases, and by the way, our district attorney, Fonnie Willis, has been on point with some of those cases. So there is additional security already in place, because, of course, you recognize that this is the former president of the United States, but we can expect a mugshot, we can expect fingerprinting, all of those things to happen and to be processed.
What about?
So that's the first.
This is unbelievable. I mean, because let me get to this. Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff to then President Trump. He said, "Okay, I want to move this case out of the state and into federal court." What is he trying to do here, and why?
So technically, the term is removal. When you have multiple parties, it is a classic move, a classic defense, because I'm a plaintiff's lawyer, so it's a classic defense to remove a case to federal court. So it was filed in state court, and the defendants have the right to file motions and seek removal to federal court. And the grounds would be, typically if you've got a defendant who is a resident, there are complex issues such as diversity jurisdiction, then there are ways of defeating that. There's certainly ways of defeating that. But one of the legal maneuvers that they will try to do is remove their case to federal court. But simply because it's removed to federal court, it doesn't mean that it stays in federal court. It can be remanded back to state court. And I predict that will happen for these reasons. They're going to seek to remove it, all the defendants. They're going to join in with that because they want to be in federal court. Why? Because in federal court, you have federal judges that manage the case slightly differently than in state court, number one. Secondly, if the case is a federal case, there could potentially be a what? A federal presidential pardon. We talked about this yesterday. Georgia is one of two states currently that does not allow or permit gubernatorial pardons. So each of those defendants, if they are convicted, will serve, not negotiate, will serve a mandatory sentence of 5 years, and that includes the former president. Period, end of discussion. So each of them has a vested interest in trying to remove the case to federal court. But I got news for them. The one thing that we know when you are in the position, whether you are the district attorney or the state, whether you're a federal prosecutor or state prosecutor, county prosecutor, you have the power to fashion your complaint, fashion your lawsuit to minimize the likelihood of certain things happening. It is completely foreseeable that the defendants in this case would try to remove the case to federal court. So Bonnie Willis and her team completely anticipated that. I believe they fashioned the claims in this case to minimize the likelihood of them succeeding in the removal. Because when they remove it, they file a motion to remove it, then the state has a chance to respond to that and to explain why it should be in state court. So that's number one. What they will also, let's suppose the defendants lose on that motion. Let's suppose they lose on that motion. If they lose on that motion, the case will be remanded back to state court, and this is going to be a process. Then they're going to seek to try to get it and shift it to another venue, to another place in Georgia, because they, rightly so, do not like Fulton County. Why? Because, again, you've got the power to select where you do these things. And the attorney have elected with the facts and how she's presented her case, to be in Fulton County. Well, there were other abuses, voting abuses that happened in smaller counties. I think it's called Coffee County, Georgia, which is a small rural county. Of course, they'd love to be there versus Fulton County, which is going to have it's going to be very, very high profile. It's going to have a diverse jury pool, potentially. And it is going to take some time to pick a jury. But again, District Attorney Bonnie Willis is very equipped to handle these types of cases. She has done it before successfully and continues to do it. So the power that she has is in framing this complaint the way that she feels it will survive and remain in Fulton County and remain in state court. But it's going to be up to, of course, who? The judges. Judges determine whether a case, when the motions are filed for the case to be removed, a judge will decide whether removal is proper, whether it should be remanded back to state court. And that's going to be the first legal hurdle. And all of these defendants would prefer to be in federal court because they think the federal court will operate. And depending upon who they pick, they could pick, guess what? A Trump appointee. Wouldn't that be interesting? And that Trump appointee, like we've seen in Florida, may not feel the need, like we saw in Florida, to recuse him or herself from the case. So there are thousands of reasons why they'd want to be in federal court. And that explains the legal framework for that, Santita.
Call us at 773-763-9278. We have you know what? Someone who's fairly new to the panel, but he's not not new to us. Certainly, those of us at Rainbow Push. Indeed, he's one of our allies, who is in one of the red states. But America's very red. It's very blue, but it's also very red. Attorney David Slane, what do you make of this? I mean, and the Fulton County Sheriff has said, look, and CK, you're down there with them. You understand the culture. And he said, look, he's going to be processed just like everybody else. What about the mugshot?
Well, the fact, let me, good morning, Santita. Let me tell you, the fact that the sheriff made that public statement tells you that he's going to be treated somewhat like everybody else. I agree with the lawyer. She explained it perfectly of what happens whenever a person turns themselves in. But I think that what Donald Trump has tried to avoid up to this point was a mugshot, because a mugshot's associated with a criminal, and the public knows that. And that's what he's tried to avoid. And I think the sheriff is trying to tell us all that's not going to happen. But the fact that he makes a statement saying he's going to be treated like everybody else tells you it's a difficult situation to treat him like everybody else. Taking it just a step outside that realm, I'm a lawyer here in Oklahoma City that has handled criminal cases for almost 30 years. And I have defended RICO cases. I've been in the courtroom when there's multiple prosecutors, multiple defendants, multiple lawyers. And I think I said this yesterday, but the courtroom looks like the United Nations. I mean, you got all these people doing all these different things. I think that what's going to ultimately happen is that the public is still, where I'm at, they don't want to read the indictment. They don't believe it. They still think it's political, and they don't realize just how serious these charges are. But the fact that you have 19 defendants tells you the tremendous amount of logistics that's going to go into a trial. I predict about half of them will become witnesses, and about half of them, or maybe even less, will go to trial. I think there'll be some sweetheart deals that are cut. And so I think that, and they'll turn on the president. Some of them are going to turn on the president because the state court prosecution is simply different than these federal prosecutions up to this point. And I will tell you, in Oklahoma, very similar to Georgia, a RICO case not only is a mandatory prison sentence, but in Oklahoma, you have to serve 85% of that sentence. So these are different animals. And the president's looking at a real problem in Georgia. As far as removal, I'll have to defer to the others. That doesn't happen much here in Oklahoma. I would think, though, that one thing that would be hot on the motion trail if it remains in state court would be the defense lawyers moving to another county, one that would be more favorable to the defendant as far as the jury pool goes. An argument that the pretrial publicity, all of the things that's happened up to this point, nobody can get a fair trial. And so that's going to be, I think that's going to be heavily litigated. And again, Santita, time. It's time. This idea that we're racing up against the election, it's time. And I think that that's the problem with all of the Republicans. Think about it. All the elected Republicans around the country standing up and defending Donald Trump. I thought the Republican Party was a party of law and order.
Yeah.
And that's the political side, I think, that goes directly in there. And not to mention, think about how many days a president's going to be in courtrooms, mandatorily be in a courtroom instead of out campaigning on the trail.
Well, just what do you think? Because you were telling us yesterday, CK, just how the people who support the former president, they don't want to hear about this trial. They're going to keep on going and support him. People who support President Biden, they don't want to hear about Hunter Biden. They're going to keep on going. What about the mugshot? Why don't you hold that till we get there? Well, no, tell me, just how do you think people are going to react in your red state to this mugshot?
Oh, I think it's going to have an impact, because that mugshot is going to bring forth the reality that this is a RICO, a racketeering case that for a criminal, mafioso people, that's what we associate with racketeering. And that's going to have a dramatic impact, I believe. Just the visual, the optics of it, not good for the former president.
David Slane,
something that he will try to fight.
Oh my gosh, David Slane, before we go to break, I got about 30 seconds.
I agree. I think that that mugshot is going to be riveting, and I think that at some point the Republicans are going to start pulling off their support. But right now, in the red state of Oklahoma, it hasn't happened.
I just wonder. I'm wondering if the mugshot's going to amplify his support. You know, when people feel, I mean, because Eugene Debs got about 1 million votes from jail. I mean, he was a populist. So, you know, I mean, come on now. This is not an uncharted territory in that regard. You've had someone who was in prison, who was on the U.S. presidential ballot, and who got about 1 million votes. About 100 years ago, but it happened. And right now, anything can happen. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show on Legal Q&A with CK in just a minute. Okay, CK and Attorney David Slane and Attorney Aaron Connolly and Dwight McKee. This is just, it's the gift that keeps on giving. Ooh. What'd you say? Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's something, you know, we talked about this yesterday. I think it's a sad day for our country. It may be a great day for transparency and for accountability. I will grant that. But it's a sad day. How embarrassing, how humiliating internationally for so many reasons. I mean, people in the international communities throughout the world predicted this type of thing. I mean, they were calling him a crook and a criminal before some people here were willing to even engage and entertain that notion. So it's very embarrassing. It's very humiliating. Not a good look for our country, not a good look for the leaders that we are, but it's our reality. And in terms of transparency, accountability, and things of that nature, and law and order, to use the Republican term, yeah, it's great for that. They're not using that term, law and order and law and justice now, but in terms of that and accountability, yeah, it is the chickens coming home to roost if the district attorney can prove that case. I do agree with David Slane. If I were defending this case, I would have been running 100 miles an hour, planting myself and camping out in front of District Attorney Fonnie Wilson's office. Please give me a deal. How quickly can I turn evidence? Because these people will go to jail. There's not, if they are convicted, and there's a mountain of evidence, 2 years of investigation. We haven't even, all the stuff that we saw in the January 6th hearing, that's not the evidence you're going to see here. So I think people need to understand there might be some cross-fertilization, very little. 2 years of investigations, many witnesses of color, many witnesses who are not of color to support the states or the county.
2 minutes.
This is a county district attorney. This is not a federal prosecution. This is not even a state prosecution. This is a county, Fulton County. And the magnitude of that has yet to hit, I think, this country at how a county can make a difference when there are these types of very, very serious allegations. These are serious allegations. Those people in Fulton County that testified at the January 6th hearing, it was riveting to listen to them, and distressing and distasteful, disdainful, oppressive, and what we hope that we never encounter. We have voluntary people being harassed and intimidated by people in power who have the money and the resources. So that's not going to go over well, even with, it doesn't really matter your color. I think that, of course, you're going to have jurors. It's going to be hard to pick a jury because they're going to be split down party lines. But this district attorney is accustomed to that.
Well, the
She's very
Chicago
accustomed to
way,
that.
the Chicago way has hit the rest of the USA. Girl, look, I'm from Chicago. I'm not surprised.
Right, exactly. And I remind people that R. Kelly was prosecuted and convicted
based on the New York RICO statute. Not federal, New York.
Back in 30.
Stand by. We're under 30 seconds.
We have to remember.
And you've got Dwight, and you've got, of course, Aaron.
Aaron. I was going to turn to Aaron now.
Of course. No,
and then have Daddy Dwight. He's going to bring it home, as he always says. Daddy D, Uncle Dwight, Uncle D, the great social scientist and visionary. I know. But you know what? He has kids. He has children in the movement, and he has children who he's inspired and whose vision is touched.
Mm-hmm.
So you call people like that.
Change the world, change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. I want to know what your thoughts are about this case. What's going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? What will be the impact of seeing former President Trump, seeing him fingerprinted, if we see that, but certainly seeing his mugshot? What about the federal case, the state case? Why is it so important? What is the basis upon which Mark Meadows is appealing for this state case to become a federal case? Why is it so important? But upon what basis does he change? I mean, and could that impact everybody else in the criminal justice system? It's a lot to talk about, Attorney C.K. Hoffler. You've got a tremendous panel. You've got, of course, Daddy D, Dwight McKee. You've got Attorney David Slane, brilliant criminal defense lawyer out of Oklahoma. But, of course, he's done a lot of civil rights work, and we're always so grateful to have him. And, of course, we've got our girl. We have missed her, CK. Attorney Erin Connolly.
I know. She's our sister. She's our sister. And, Erin, I have missed your voice, missed your perspective, missed your brilliance. And so what do you say about this? You come back into this country and all hell is broken loose. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I've missed all of you, and I'm so glad to be on to talk about this. It is, it's absolutely, as you said, CK, just damaging to our country, this whole situation. And what I'm grateful for is this 2-year investigation, that this investigation took the time and the energy and their due diligence to make sure that the evidence is set against the former President Trump and the accomplices who undermine our democracy in a way that we've never seen before. And what we see here is that their arguments about stealing the election and influencing the election from other people was a projection, right? And so I think beyond this case, we have to look to the first election of Donald Trump and take a harder look at some of those statements that they were making, that Hillary Clinton was going to steal the election, right? Because we see now with the evidence that will be presented in this case, and it will be different than the January 6th hearings. This is a 2-year investigation, as you said, and it's a very serious thing, not only for the former president, but as you mentioned, Mark Meadows and many other folks within his orbit. And as we talk about the potential movement in this from a state court to a federal court, we have to look at what the official duties were of these folks involved in this case, right? That's the argument that Mark Meadows makes, that anything that was executed that he is accused of was within his role as a staff member for the president.
butterflies nest is the same thing. I suggest you be real careful about that. And if you think that a killer bee is the same thing as a lightning bulb, and try to get the kids to run around and catch them and put them in jars in the summertime, I suggest you be very careful about that. But you need to be very careful of what you're dealing with. And even though all things should be treated the same, all things are not the same. All situations are not the same. And you are dealing with a person who's representing a constituency in a country which itself is a criminal enterprise. I mean, the lawyer talks about he's from Oklahoma. They can give a rat's behind about what's happening on the legal side. Is the same Oklahoma of the Trail of Tears that they took the natives from Mississippi and made them walk through Oklahoma and took both lands from them. It's the same Oklahoma of Tulsa where they bombed their neighbors. I mean, what you are dealing with is not an ordinary situation. And I would have, if I were the prosecutor, I really would have put that on the table before I went after him and evaluated, is the ends worth the means? If putting him in jail is worth the upheaval in the country, what you're going to get. And let prudence suggest which way I go with this. I never forget when Trump was and Barack was at the correspondence dinner, and Trump was sitting there eating his dinner, kind of minding his own business, even though he'd take some shots at Barack. Barack couldn't help but take major shots at a megalomaniac in front of the whole world. Why would you stir that hornet's nest? It was at that point, I believe, that Trump decided, I'm going to run for president.
Why do you think that most of the country is going to line up behind him? I mean, because I'd like to know.
Because much of the country thinks like him. Much of the country thinks like him. I think that we operate in a delusion when this notion of what America is more mythology than real. And when you would have thought that when Bush went in Afghanistan, in Iran and Iraq under the guise of weapons of mass destruction, knowing it was a lie, everybody finding out it was a lie, and they killed 1 or 2 million people, you would think that the country would have revolted about that. You would think the country whatever the values of the country would have been as such, as somebody would have been accountable, that he'd have been in front of the Hague for having done that. No, he's a hero to most of the country to this day, as is his daddy to this day. And I mean, you would have thought that there would have been a revolt. But no, there was no revolt. There was no rebellion. There was, shock and awe, and God bless America. I don't think that we are who we think that we are. This country is, as a country. I think the country is self-serving. The country is has no problem being the military force in the world. The country has 80 bases, I think, around the world, and sees itself as the masters of the universe, and that Trump really represents that value system, and that they are locked into that value system. That's just when I look at America, that's what I see.
David Slane, what do you see, and what are you hearing?
Well, I'll give you an example of what I'm hearing. Yesterday, I happened to be sitting in my waiting room in my office. I had a meeting with a sister whose brother's charged with a serious felony, and she happened to hear me talking on your radio program. And afterwards, I got in the other lawyer that I work with was inside working. And when I got finished, I said, I hope you weren't offended by having to wait a few minutes. I was just finishing up my show with Santita Jackson. And she said, I just wanted to get up and give you a kiss in the middle of the interview. And then the lawyer standing behind me said, I just wanted to get up and hit you over the head with a 2x4. America's divided. The analysis that he just gave you, America is very divided. And if you think this is for the first time, think again. 40% of the American public never voted for FDR. And he stayed in office how long? So I think that, as I look at what's happening, and maybe I'm not saying enough legally because you got great legal minds on your show. Maybe I'm saying too much from a personal viewpoint perspective from Oklahoma. But what I see is the clash of two courts. One court is the court of public opinion. And it is what everybody thinks. Is he really a scoundrel? Is he really a criminal? Or is he just, being crucified because of his political views and the fact that he's standing up? Is this really a witch hunt? Those are the colliding views of the court of public opinion. Then you've got the court of law. And he's going to lose in the court of law. In my opinion, he's going to lose in the court of law. The problem is, and I keep saying it, the wheels of justice are square. It is going to take... I would not be surprised if one of these cases doesn't even get concluded before the election. It just is taking too long. And it's thorough. I respect it. I appreciate that. And then I'm going to throw one last thing in for the great legal minds. We have these things called juries. And all it takes is one person on a criminal jury to say, I'm not going to convict this man. And that whole trial has to start all over again from the beginning. That's a tough call because it is a tough case. But I think the evidence is overwhelming. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking up for Donald Trump, but I'm just telling you, smart, good lawyers that are seasoned and well-trained are going to raise, I tell people sometimes I get paid a lot of money to raise a reasonable doubt. And then sometimes I go take a case because I believe it's the right thing. And people don't know what to think because all of this 30 years of experience is there.
But I think that, the fact that you have to add this caveat, I'm not supporting this person or the other. I mean, I've heard Dwight do it. I mean, I think that we're not in a good space because we don't allow people, even if you supported, not President Trump, but if you felt that because you, as someone who comes from the civil rights community, I'm always going to look at the intelligence establishment and the police a particular way. Even though I know we fought to get people on the police force, and I know some great, great police officers, and I really think that people enter into that space. These are people who run toward trouble. They don't run away from it. I think they enter into it with the loftiest of ambitions and goals. I really do. But I've seen so much that makes me go, you know what? Hey, CK, I got to pump the brakes on this. And I've got to take my time. I know you're running because you have got to be on court TV like in 2 minutes. So I want you to be able to literally. So I want you to go on and say what you need to say.
Well,
Turn on court
and
TV, everybody. She's like,
I apologize for having to do that. Well, Santita, I love that you provide this forum for us to have honest discussion. I love everybody's perspective. I just want us to keep eyes on Georgia, because what happens in Georgia in this particular case could be replicated in other places. There are other places where the exact same scenario or similar facts may have transpired. Remember, there was litigation in Arizona, litigation, Pennsylvania, litigation, a number of different states, and there were all these representatives and people in the field doing similar things that they did in Georgia. So I think we have to keep an eye on this. And secondly, again, remember, this is not a great look for our country. Nobody's happy about this, but it is what it is. And this is a serious criminal proceeding. And for the first time, people who are naysayers and doubters are going to see where there may be some accountability, even if he does not get convicted. The fact that there's a process that will take place for all of these infractions in Fulton County against Fulton County citizens. Please don't lose sight of that there are people, innocent bystanders who were intimidated, who were pushed around and bullied because they refused to capitulate and to say that what they were doing was fraudulent. Some of the evidence that comes out is going to be astounding. And I think we have to just watch this very carefully. If it's in state court, we will see it on TV every day. If it's a federal court, we will not. And we'll have to just rely on people's accounts who happen to be in the courtroom. And there will be there are going to be a lot of restrictions anyway. And I predict that this
Crazy's driving me nuts today. I don't know what the problem is, but I'm back, D-Ray. And so I want to hear some closing thoughts from these brilliant legal and socially scientific minds. Everybody, just keep your eyes open and get registered to vote. The reason you have this case in Georgia is because the people of Fulton County voted Connie Willis in. The reason you have any of these cases is because they vote these prosecutors in. That having been said, what's going to happen? I still wonder about the impact of seeing this man's mugshot. How it's going to. We keep talking about the Trump base. That's a misnomer, everyone, because you talk about his base as if he has a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a whole. He is the Republican Party, everybody. And the reason he is the Republican Party is because he brought voters to the party. It's just that simple. He doesn't have a base. He has a large swath of America voted for him. More than 74 million people. Don't you ever, 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 ever forget that. And that's colliding with President Biden. We don't even know about his accomplishments. Most of the data from polling is showing that most people don't know the tremendous success that he's had. As a consequence, he's one of the most unpopular presidents in modern history. How did that happen? That having been said, you've got someone who's very unpopular, who has a huge base of support, a huge number of people who support him for a whole lot of reasons. Some of these reasons have nothing to do with race, everybody. They got nothing to do with that. They see him as someone who's pushing up against the system. There's just a whole lot of reasons. You need to just sit down, cool your jets, and ask people why they support whom they support. Let's just have some calm discussions. Because at the end of the day, somebody's going to be sitting in that White House seat. And you need them to work for you. I don't care what your party is. I can't wait to be with you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. God bless you, everybody. Love you. I mean, David Slane, I know you got to go. That having been said, I just seeing this, the mugshot, I think it'll be cold. You're going to have different reactions, reactions over here, reactions over there. But I think it's going to really up the ante for his supporters, not his base. Because the Republicans the corporate media keeps saying, like 30% of the Republican Party support him. No, they don't. And it's not just Republicans who support him. Remember, during the 2016 cycle, people toggled between two populists, Bernie and Trump. That's just real. Don't get mad with me. That's the data, y'all. So where do you see this going? I mean, because you're not surrounded, you're immersed in a particular culture down there. And so are we all. We just maybe we're a little bit more polite, or should I say we know how to obfuscate a little bit better in the North. David Slane, where do you see this going? Oh wow, did he go? All right, Aaron, are you there?
I'm still here. Yes.
Where do you see this going?
I agree. It'll be interesting. It's been an adventure since Donald Trump first started running for president, and he will continue to bring excellent ratings for our friends in the cable news network as this rolls out. I'm interested to see, as PK pointed out, once the details and evidence really start emerging in this case, what Republicans who've held power have to say, right? When we see Chris Christie finally having enough after working with this administration for so long, I hope that others like him, the spirit of John McCain, for example, will prevail and put country over party, which isn't really in this scenario putting country over party, because Trump is going to destroy the Republican Party if they keep supporting him in this way. So there's some really big choices that not just his base, but the Republican supporters, the moderate Republicans who maybe have held their nose up at him but still voted for him when it comes down to it. What will they do as this primary season comes into play? And what will we see in these debates, right? We have Republican debates coming up. How will they address this? Will the questions be asked that even dig into some of this evidence, or will there just be tepid support calling this a witch hunt? There's a lot at stake here, and I look forward to watching.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts?
Well, you remember Mitt Romney? He was going to be the heir apparent in the Republican Party. And then there was Bush, whose father and brother had been the president, and he was going to be the heir apparent in the Republican Party. And then there was Sister Liz Cheney, whose father had been the vice president. She was going to be the heir to the Republican Party. Where are they now? At home watching Donald Trump on television. I'm saying this to say, don't discount the support behind this guy, demagogue or whatever you call him. He has a base and a cult-like following that's probably almost unparalleled in American history. And when all is said and done, as the good lawyer said, it really is going to only take 1 or 2 votes to reverse the whole process, to bring the whole process to a halt from the jury. And you can expect that as part of the process. What you have only done is given him more sympathy, more talking points, more money, more resources, and a higher profile. He's been dominating the news like nobody else for the last month just because of these trials. And that's why I say that you really have to measure the impact of your own behavior and whether or not you are helping or hurting somebody or you're working against yourself. The Lord said that it don't make a lot of sense to kick against the pricks, because the harder you kick, the more you hurt yourself. He also said that you have to measure the cost. Before you go to war, count your soldiers, count your horses, count their soldiers, count their horses. It may be better for you to negotiate a truce. And I think what you're doing is putting this guy in a position, as part of your unintended consequences, to become the president all over again, even a better situation than he would have had if you would have just left him alone and let the voters deal with the policy issues and taking all this other stuff off the table.
Well, you have a response, Aaron?
I mean, I agree with Dwight, and I want more predictions from him. But I do have to run. I'm running to the Democratic brunch down in Springfield.
Sending you much
thank
love.
you. It's so great to be back. Miss you all.
Well, I'm glad you're back. So now we can call you.
Good to see you, Aaron.
Now we can call you because we can't connect through WhatsApp. get you on there. Love you so much.
Bless you all. Thank you for a wonderful wake up.
Oh, wow. Now, Paula has said to you, love you, Dwight. We speak the same language. You know, really, one of the things that I appreciate about you is that, you know, you're not, I think there's a time for partisanship. There's no question about it. But I think that when you're analyzing an issue, partisanship, really, you have to put that aside so that you can really understand what you're looking at, right? And we have to look at all the things, all of the pieces that are moving. If you look at the Republican driven commercials on using Hunter Biden, you know, in a most unflattering silhouette, because he is someone who struggled, and I hope that, you know, the sympathy and the empathy that many feel or should feel for Hunter, we would do that for anyone who's struggling with some kind of addiction. I think that this election cycle is going to go there. And that's what concerns me too. It's going to get personal, it's going to get ugly, and we're already there, everybody. See, when we're looking at Trump, you're looking at someone, yeah, he's trying to stay out of prison. And he and his 18 cohorts, 2 of whom are Black, by the way, Dwight. One of whom was worked for Kanye West, a young woman out of Chicago, and a Black man who is in the MAGA space who helped to bring her there. Not that really matters, because I think that this is not a black-white thing, y'all. And I think that we make a mistake as we look at the judges, as we look at the lawyers, as we look at the prosecutors, and we're like, you know, this is about Black women saving America. No, it's not. Black folks cannot even get great jobs in these top law firms. We have to enter the public space in order for our genius to be recognized. And you have a heck of a fight on your hands even there. There's something else going on here. And I think we need to be aware of that. Please don't let them racialize this for you. This is about power. Power is odorless, is colorless, it ain't got no taste. It just is. Power is real. It's a real thing. Dwight, your thoughts before we go?
I'll just express them. Okay. It's going to really be sensitive, interested to see how this thing, which way this thing goes and how it develops.
How do you see it developing with mugshots and fingerprints and going through a jail where a man was just eaten to death by bed bugs? That's where everybody's going to get processed.
I told you that they're negotiating the licensing rights to the mug shots as we speak. He would be the first convict to own licensing rights to his own mug shot.
It's right. And if they say you can't have the picture, well, you can't. You didn't say anything about the picture of the picture. Man, this is going to be rich, and you're going to see a lot of people with that as a screensaver. He'll own the rights to that. As a T-shirt, he'll own the rights to that. And hey, but he's a master marketer. He understands that, and he understands exactly who he's appealing to.
You gonna see that mugshot on lunchboxes.
Oh,
you gonna see that mugshot on lunchboxes
and
all over the country.
And they're going to transform the message to meet this moment. I am fighting the system. You might even see.
For you.
I'm fighting for you. You might even see. You just had this. This paper that was raided by the police. He's going to appeal to them. The Black Lives Matter people who have been spied on by the FBI. The 80-year-old black man in Philadelphia, the black freedom fighter, who's raided by the FBI. That's why he dropped that tranche on Dr. King during his presidency. He said, look at what the FBI does and look at what they did it to. Look at whom they did it to. You're going to see a lot of things flip out here. You looking for these 18 other people to flip? American public opinion is going to flip on these institutions. I promise you that. That is what he's aiming for.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And they will flip photos if they just flip.
What you say?
And they will flip before those defendants flip.
Oh, man. Yeah. Because these people are in it for the long haul. I don't think you really get this. This is, you need to ask some people who support him why they do. See, I really try to be quiet and listen. Even when I disagree, I'm like, no, that's why I try to engage everybody on the air. I'm like, I'm really curious. I want to know why you think as you do. And I think that we all ought to be curious and more than that, respectful. And understand everybody's got a worldview. Everybody. But this Trump thing is deep and it's meeting a moment. You had a populist, and that is what Trump is. He might not be from the Eugene Debs tradition, but that he is that. And he has a popular appeal. Eugene Debs, the noted socialist, was in prison when he ran for president, when he got about 1 million votes. And this is when the country was significantly smaller, significantly fewer in population. He got a whole lot of votes from that prison cell. And that was 100 years ago. What do you think would happen now? Oh, please. When folks can't send their children to college, when you cannot afford to buy a house, when you're catching the devil trying to keep your house, when you can't rent an apartment the median rent in the United States is $2,000 a month. How many of you can afford that? How many of you make at least $4,000 a month? Come on.
And when black men believe, whether rightfully or wrongly, that all of their resources, the resources that they fought for and earned, has been divvied up to other people. So they see they are insulted by Ukraine, by all the money going to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. They are insulted by the money going to the people in New York that they've gotten off those buses. And in their minds, they don't, even though they feel like, that there should be some fairness in that, they feel, and these other people should be taken care of. Their thoughts are why they taken care of and we're not taken care of. And we invested more in the country than anybody else. And so there is a subtle hostility among black men that grows bigger every day.
Even though
that is not being, I think, properly processed.
That's absolutely, it's not being paid attention to. Even though the people who are being brought into the United States are really coming home, they just speak Spanish this time.
Absolutely.
These are indigenous
and
people
then
who speak
their
Spanish.
argument is not
Mm-hmm.
these people don't have a right to be taken care of. Is that do they have a right to be taken care of at our expense, and why we are never reinvested in? That's what they're struggling with.
Oh no, I hear you. And you know what? You still need to fight the power. How about that? Fight the power. Come on, y'all. Fight the power. Woo. Fight the power. That's what you need to do. And you need to think about that. Think about that. Because that to me is the real issue. Because it's the corporations that are bringing these poor workers in, and they're subsidizing them. And yes, America would like to put to rest the question of justice for the indigenous and dealing with their story. They'd like to put to rest slavery and that story. It's just not going to happen. Somehow or another, the blood never loses its power. It's the only substance that cannot be degraded. You can clean it up and you might think that you have taken it off the walls and off the floorboards and out the ground, but the blood is still there. The blood is still there and it never loses its power. It never loses its power, and it won't. And it will soothe all doubts and fears. It'll dry every tear. It gives you strength from day to day. It will never lose its power. So America's either going to get right with the people it has wronged, and I think America is big enough to do that. If we're not, we're going to need to grow up and get big enough to do that, and we need to grow and be big enough to do that. Otherwise, I fear for the country. I do. You can't go forward behaving in a backwards fashion. Backwards people don't say, I'm sorry. Backwards people are afraid of looking at the things that they've done. And when you've hurt someone, and when you hurt yourself, Alcoholics Anonymous tells you, you got not self-pity, self-love. And then they ask you to be accountable. Go to the people you've hurt. Apologize. That's the only way you're going to get well. You're not going to get well. America's not going to get well until you make things right with indigenous people. First. Yeah, I said it first. We're sitting on their land. All these enslaved Africans. Come on, it's not going to happen, y'all. It's not. And you can just keep on going. So let's get this right. Get it right. Get it right. And I promise you, when you look at Trump, he's going to do this thing. He is going to campaign differently. It's going to be a different deal. It's going to be a different deal. And Dwight, you're right. Black men they are really more and more. He's got at least 20% of the black male vote. At least 20. At least. At least. We haven't seen anything yet. Dwight, we ain't seen nothing. Nothing. So do you want to have a final word, Dwight, before we go?
Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, my. All right. Well, I love it. And I love you. And I love all of y'all. I hope you have a great day. And we will see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. What did you say, Yvonne? You said, let's bring mindful civic engagement. Dwight, you got a lot of high fives and amens today. And that's a wonderful thing. I'm going to really start trying to read more of your comments on the air, everybody. I really, really want to do that. I'm just trying to keep up with a lot during the show. Linear Bob said, I agree with Dwight. That mugshot will be on church from 1995. Oh, D-Ray Jones. D-Ray. She said, you want a small part 2 of the show this afternoon. I wish I could, girl. I'm going to be in meetings all afternoon. But I promise you, we'll do it again. We're going to continue to talk about this issue because this is a real big issue. A real big issue. But, Dwight, tomorrow I'm going to prevail upon you again because I just got a personal note from Chuck Collins from the Institute for Policy Studies. And I'm going to send this to you because he sent me this information, and I'm going to call him when I get off the air. There is 60 years after Dr. King gave his iconic I Have a Dream speech at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, a new report lays bare the harsh reality of Black economic inequality today in America. It reveals the sobering projection that without significant changes, Dwight, it could take African Americans over 500 more years to achieve economic parity. So there is that. Definitely got to talk about that tomorrow. I'm going to reach out to Chuck Collins and that's my show for tomorrow. See, 500 years. You think I ain't got 500 years? None of us have it. So, get right. Love you, Dwight. Thank you. And sending much love to Henry. Thank you for a great show. I love you, everybody. I will see you tomorrow. God bless you. And check out CK on Court TV right now. Send Court TV email and let them know how much you love seeing her on Court TV so they can give her more time and they need to give her a show. How about that? Yeah. Love you, everybody. God bless.